Welcome to Ideas. I'm Nala Ayed.
But died thy sister of her love, my boy.
I am all the daughters of my father's house, and all the brothers, too.
How do you get a play off the written page and onto a theater stage? A good play can suggest many different interpretations. Directors, actors, and scholars will all have different points of view, and no one is ever entirely right or wrong. What a play can mean is a never-ending creative discussion, and that's a good thing, particularly if the playwright is William Shakespeare.
I think the beauty of imaginative literature, especially Shakespeare, is the lesson in ambiguity. Unfortunately, people embrace that less and less, and I've often told my students that's a huge problem, especially when you approach imaginative literature with literal mindedness. You're not willing or able to liberate your mind.
Today on Ideas, from the Stratford Festival, a pair of actors, a couple of scholars, and a director toss the ball around on scenes from 3 Shakespeare plays, exploring the theme of sex and gender and how Shakespeare's people talk to each other about these delicate issues.
There is no woman's sides can bide the beating of so strong a passion as love doth give my heart. No woman's heart so big to hold so much.
On stage at Lazaretus Hall, actor and director Jonathan Goad, scholars Jyotsna Singh and Alexa Alice Joubin, and actors Mev Beattie and Graham Abbey. The ringmaster is Ideas producer Philip Coulter. We're calling this From Page to Stage. The 3 plays we're going to be looking at are Twelfth Night, Troilus and Cressida, and The Taming of the Shrew. Twelfth Night tells the story of a shipwrecked young woman, Viola, who dresses as a young man, calls herself Cesario, and goes to work for Duke Orsino. She quickly falls in love with the Duke, but A, he thinks she's a young man, and B, he's in love with his neighbor, Olivia, and it falls to Viola/Cesario to court Olivia on the Duke's behalf. In Act 2, Scene 4, Viola and Orsino are talking about the nature of love and how men and women have different ways of expressing it. Here's Philip Coulter.
So, Jonathan, I'm going to turn to you first and ask, what's your read about this scene and how would you go about directing it?
I'll preface this by saying that when I enter a rehearsal hall with a group of actors, and particularly when you have, in this case, 2 actors who have enormous experience and skill, I sort of feel it's incumbent upon me not to infringe upon the actor, at least for the first series of sort of playing about the space. But I wrote down just some impressions about the play itself. The play is both natural and unnatural. It is, in essence, a musical. It's in a natural setting, but it also could be a magical island. The play itself will never take itself seriously enough to be serious. It's full of outrageous characters, but thoroughly unforgettable, with hints of life beyond the life we see on stage. On this island, love is a spell. It's a dominant force. Orsino is a lover. He's a lover of love. He behaves like a king. He behaves like a conqueror. He's generous. He's honest. He's looking for a conquest. Viola is uniquely fitted to navigate and create the narrative in which she finds herself. She leads by instinct and emotion, and yet she's sometimes passive. She moves towards adventure, but gently. Her presence unlocks feelings in others. This play, I believe, is akin to many of the romances we see later in Shakespeare's career. So those are my first instincts about the play.
Okay, I'm going to turn to the actors now. Let's pretend that we're in the rehearsal hall and the director's given a kind of opening talk about what the vision is of the play. To you and Mev and Graham, start with you, Mev, just some of your reaction to what Jonathan's been talking about and your own ideas about this character, which you have played, and this play.
I think it's really delicious to have faith in process at the beginning of the process. And if you know you have a captain of the ship like Johnny, you can trust the world that he's built for you to be the environment that you're going to start playing in. So I found that really helpful because now I have an image bank in my imagination before I just think about the black and white words on the page. I have some immediate sort of flavors of relationship and Also a little bit of caution, which is good because I know myself as a performer, I tend to start by spilling everything I have, going for the largest, deepest emotional choices, and then adding detail later. Not every actor is like that. So for me, in this context, it's helpful to have a director say, oh yeah, Viola, she's gentle. She goes to things and, okay, unlike me, Viola, I could lean into those parts of myself as a performer that may be helpful to tiptoe at the beginning of process with this character.
Before I turn to Graham, and before we start maybe to read a few lines from the play, in a sentence or two, what are you going to go for in Viola?
I think because it's a sort of nice challenge for me, I think I will lean into the idea of caution and the gentle approach from her, which I think I could do this scene with the opposite approach. And so I think that'll be fun to try.
Graham, coming into the play, coming into this scene.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, as an actor, you often approach these in a vacuum. You read the play, you remember past productions, you do your research, but of course then you put that up against the litmus of a director's vision and what a director wants to do. So what I would do is take from Johnny that notion of, I love that notion of an island, of a magical place, because it's full of potential. I'm always reminded of Twelfth Night. The great Robin Phillips once said that he believed the play was the last night before the end of the world. And I love that with romance, because you see it in Much Ado, you see it in Love's Labours, these endings where think not on that till tomorrow. And so this is a play about big heart. The language itself, these two characters approaching this scene are big, big dreamers, and they have big bleeding hearts. And the combination of that creates the comedy and the irony of it, because as Orsino, Johnny mentioned too about music, of course. I mean, this is verse, this is music. So another thing you look at here as an actor is the potential of the shared lines and what they do, So both these characters are speaking in heightened poetry with big hearts in a magical place. That's my entry point for sure. And the music of it. I love the music of Shakespeare, always have.
And same question, going into this, what's the one thing you're going to go for on the first read with Mev?
The heartbeat, I would say.
Johnny, what shall we read?
I think we should just start at...
line 17, whatever it is?
Yeah, come hither, boy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, over to you.
Now we've really set ourselves up. Come hither, boy. If ever thou shalt love, in the sweet pangs of it remember me. For such as I am, all true lovers are unstayed and skittish in all motions else, save in the constant image of the creature that is beloved. How dost thou like this tune?
It gives a very echo to the seat where love is throned.
Thou dost speak masterly. My life upon, young though thou art, thine eye hath stayed upon some favor that it loves, hath it not, boy?
A little. By your favor?
Mm-hmm. What kind of woman is't?
Of your complexion?
She is not worth thee, then. What years, of faith?
About your years, my lord.
Too old, by heaven. Let still the woman take an elder than herself. So wears she to him. So sways she level in her husband's heart. For boy, however we do praise ourselves, our fancies are more giddy and unfirm, more longing, wavering, sooner lost and worn than women's are.
I think it well, my lord.
Then let thy love be younger than thyself, or thy affection cannot hold the bent. For women are as roses, whose fair flower, being once displayed, doth fall that very hour.
And so they are. Alas, that they are so. To die even when they to perfection grow.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn to Alexa and Jyotsna for a moment here and just remind ourselves of the overall theme that we're looking for in exploring this play, which is the idea of gender and cross-gender and how all that plays out. So going to the two of you, and I'll go first to you, Alexa, this whole question of cross-gender, let's remind ourselves that this young woman, Viola, is now dressed as a young man, a boy, Cesario. So how does that play into how you would think is important about the playing of this play and of this scene in particular?
That makes the scene so rich. The double identities, right? Commonly known as disguise, but in my reading, not always disguise. Perhaps they are presenting their true self. Whatever the case might be, what's of interest here is that makes the entire thing richer because every line is double entendre. Audiences, due to dramatic irony, knowing that it's Viola, but Rosina only sees them as page boy, as a eunuch, right? And so there are two layers. It's like a fugue, and for me that's beautiful musically. It's going on. Audiences perceiving this, while the characters on stage they're perceiving another layer of reality. On a deeper level, cross-gender roles are crucial to the meanings of this comedy. In Shakespeare's times, we know that women were generally forbidden from performing on the professional stage. And so they had boy actors as part of the common theatrical practices. And the boy actors would typically take on female roles, Viola being one of them. And so if you think about it, pause and think about it, here you have a boy actor taking on the role of Viola, doubly cross-dressed, if you will. On the modern stage, we generally would not see that kind of practice in motion. What that means, though, is that we lose half of the meanings that is what's originally intended.
I'm interested in the play in Shakespeare's own time and what it's telling us about the role of women in society. Jyotsna, can you talk a little bit about that and what that might bring to performance today?
Thank you. I think the larger question I want to raise to this play and to the two other plays we are discussing is, how can Shakespeare's plays speak to our own times? And especially the question students ask is, was Shakespeare a feminist? Was he a misogynist? We don't know what he thought. We don't know what his intentions were. But his works enable a lot of intersectional, feminist, queer-inflected readings. What I look at this play is two things. One is the languages of love. Whether they're real women or not, these languages, these discourses are available to them. So the mix of language registers, I think, brings out really exciting things.
I love that in the scene, and I'm hoping we will get to read the second part of the scene, but that it seems that a binary is being asked for, is saying, well, no, men are like this, women are like this, men love like this, women love like this. And what this character argues is, no, a sameness and a sharedness, and who better to advocate for a shared desire or appetite than someone who is currently representing both genders or all the genders in between.
And back to Johnny's original thing about the potential of an island or an isolated place to reforge a new identity. It's all set up. It's a beautiful thing.
Anything is possible. I actually, when I played this part in quite a few years ago, on a tour through Germany, Prague, and London, I played both the twins. So I was a woman playing a girl dressed up as a boy, but also a woman playing the twin brother. And yeah, it was cool. The Germans loved that.
Wonderful. It's wonderful. It is the best practice of doubling. Yeah, right.
We're going to do exactly what you were asking for, Mev, and look at the second scene. Johnny, let me just consult with you. Shall we do the whole second part of the scene from line 88, whatever it is, or?
I think we should pick up right where we left off. Once more, Cesario, get thee.
Okay.
Once more, Cesario, get thee to yon same sovereign cruelty. Tell her my love, more noble than the world, prizes not quantity of dirty lands. The parts that fortune hath bestowed upon her, tell her I hold as giddily as fortune. But 'tis that miracle and queen of gems that nature pranks her in attracts my soul.
But if she cannot love you, sir...
I cannot so be answered.
Sooth, but you must say that some lady, as perhaps there is, hath for your love as great a pang of heart as you have for Olivia. You cannot love her. You tell her so. Must she not then be answered?
There is no woman's sides can bide the beating of so strong a passion as love doth give my heart. No woman's heart so big to hold so much. They lack retention. Alas, their love may be called appetite. No motion of the liver, but the palate that suffer surfeit, cloyment, and revolt, but mine is all as hungry as the sea and can digest as much. Make no compare between that love a woman can bear me and that I owe Olivia.
Aye, but I know...
What dost thou know?
Too well what love women to men may owe. In faith, they are as true of heart as we. My father had a daughter, loved a man, as it might be, perhaps, were I a woman, I should your lordship.
And what's her history?
A blank, my lord. She never told her love, but let concealment, like a worm in the bud, feed on her damask cheek. She pined in thought, and with a green and yellow melancholy she sat like patience on a monument, smiling at grief. Was this not love indeed? We men may say more, swear more, but indeed our shows are more than will, for still we prove much in our vows, but little in our love.
But died thy sister of her love, my boy?
I am all the daughters of my father's house, and all the brothers too. And yet, I know not. Sir, shall I to this lady?
Aye, that's the theme. To her in haste, give her this jewel. Say my love can give no place, bid no denay.
Thank you.
Beautiful reading. I want to just, while I have the opportunity, to point out too that in those initial sort of instinctual responses to the play, thinking about the play in whole and in more particularly this scene, I would not so much from caution's not the right word. If I were in front of my actors on a first day of rehearsal, I would be reticent to give impressions of their characters to them. Just so you know. Now these two actors are. Again, are of such experience that they've already done that work almost instinctually themselves. But the point being that, like, as a director, something I've sort of learned, and this is an ongoing process, the learning of the director, but you have to approach with great sensitivity and intelligence how you speak to the actor, because the actor is in many ways a creative animal, and they will latch on to that which may help them greatly and also may not help them. So one of your big jobs is to help remove impediments to their journey, if those do exist, and if you can do that, and also not to provide more. And of course, we all know we've been in rooms where, sometimes that's what happens. And that's why I'm also very cognizant, or try to be cognizant, of what is concept, and how concept can be framework, which is what I believe it is, or concept can be literally a bias in how an actor should play upon the stage. So all that to say that, I would probably not have shared that with the actor, but I might share some of my bigger notions about the play and some of the framework for the actual world that we're hoping to inhabit together as a launching point, if that makes sense.
Before we move on, I just want to give maybe the last word to Jyotsna and Alexa here. Any comments on what we've been doing and what we've been listening to, and what Mev and Graham are presenting?
Thank you for the wonderful play reading. I think the theme, and thank you, Johnny, that the theme here really is ambiguity. The double entendre, saying one thing but meaning potentially five other things, and that's the pleasure for the audiences to kind of live with that ambiguity. And I would say we can and should embrace more of that open-endedness, that ambiguity, rather than pinning down on the surface. The text that we just read is about binary. Man loves this way, woman loves this way, but actually not, right? Because were I a woman, says Cesario. So full of these cues, and ambiguity creates comedy. Ambiguity compels you to think. So it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, it was so interesting the way you read it, because Orsino is trapped in a very formulaic notion of love, whereas Viola has her feelings coming out. So I think the dramatic irony you can only get when you listen to the plays. And I think just to repeat sort of what Alexa said is that throughout the play, gender roles are constantly being described as binaries, but everything in the play subverts those. That's Shakespeare's skill in almost every play, constantly undermining certainties and binaries.
Oh God. Oh, Philip, can I just say something?
Please.
Just because it just came out of what Jyotsna said. And I was thinking an interesting challenge in discovering and having a process at the context of the play. We're looking at some gender dynamic, and actually all these three scenes are about people who are romantically paired at some point in the play. There's lots of dynamic between male and female characters in Shakespeare's plays that are not romantic, that are more about age or family relationship. And also there's the dynamic in this particular scene, in the Twelfth Night scene, of status and class and power, which also intersects with those questions of gender dynamics. So if these were two peers having a conversation about how men and women love each other, it would be very different than a page boy and a duke. Mm-hmm. And so one of the huge challenges of the rehearsal process would be for us to try status dynamics, power dynamics. This is a noble woman who is in disguise as a lower class character too. So these things influence how much. It's not maybe just her femininity that keeps her from being bold. It's also her status. It's also how much voice can she have in that dynamic. And I just think it's important to flag those things because sometimes we can narrow them underneath gender interpretation and forget that there are other politicized or intersectional power dynamics at play that the actors are also navigating.
It's a fascinating idea, and you've touched on something really important there because Shakespeare, it's an old thought, I think, but Shakespeare constantly takes people out of the regular world. Mm-hmm. Like, look at As You Like It. They take them out of the city and put them in the forest. Now what happens? How did the rules change?
Exactly, just like Johnny and Graham were saying about this fantasy island where everything's possible. It also subverts class and status and power in that way.
You're listening to Ideas and to an episode called From Page to Stage. You can hear Ideas wherever you get your podcasts and on CBC Radio 1 in Canada, across North America on US Public Radio and Sirius XM, in Australia on ABC Radio National, and around the world at cbc.ca/ideas. You can also hear us on the CBC Listen app. I'm Nala Ayed.